Okay, so in last recording we discussed about the declaration and definition of a function, a little bit about the constructors and the calling the constructors, calling a print function. And so now I mentioned that in the constructor we usually don't put the cout as this is mostly for debugging or for our learning, but this doesn't go in the production code. So I want to introduce this. You may have seen this before, using macros to control which lines we want to compile and which lines we don't want to compile. So let's say if I have a macro, which is I define a macro using hash define and I call it debug. So this line number 3 defines a macro called debug, and then we can use it here on line 19 or around line 20 now. Hash if def, this is a preprocessor directive which says if there is a macro called debug that is defined, then only this line will be given to the compiler. So this is the preprocessor which processes all the directives like this, which start with hash, and then creates a code that is actually given or seen by the compiler. And we have a hash and if accompanying hash if def. So now if on line 3 we have a hash defined debug, that means that this line will be seen by the compiler because debug is defined. And let's compile this code, and it builds. I run this and you can see here it says oops, it's running a different file, so let me close this and make this okay. So you can see here we do see the output which is the default car class constructor called. Now if when we are giving this code in production, we don't want the debug code to show up in the output, we will say hash undef. So instead of, so we just do is hash undef, so debug is now undefined, and now this line of code will not compile. So now if I run the code, you will see the first line, which was default car class constructor called, doesn't show up because now the macro debug is not defined. Okay, so this lesson is short, just talking about the macros.